Link TV presents Mosaic World News from the Middle East. Here are today's top stories.
Gaddafi Captor dies from torture at the hands of former regime loyalists. Free Syrian Army claims responsibility for bombing of military headquarters in Damascus. And Mali agrees to ECOWAS troop deployment in Bamako. Mosaic World News from the Middle East begins now.
From Tripoli to Misrata, tension was prevalent in Libyan cities, dominated by the death of one of the Libyan revolutionaries who arrested Muammar Gaddafi. The city of Misrata is witnessing tension due to the death of Omran Shaban after he suffered injuries while being pursued by gunmen who kidnapped him 2 months ago and tortured him in the neighboring city of Bani Walid. His death caused security tensions between the cities of Misrata and Bani Walid, where gunmen vowed to avenge his death. Yesterday, in the capital Tripoli, an exchange of gunfire took place in front of the National Congress headquarters between the army and former fighters who were asking Libya's new rulers for more recognition of their former role. Will Libya, which continues to search for stability and security, enter an era of emergency? The resolution for the declaration of a state of emergency is still being drafted. The emergency law is derived from 5 articles. A declaration of a state of emergency is permitted through a decision from the National Congress or the Ministerial Council. Any time that security or public order in Libya is breached due to war, a situation that threatens to cause war or tensions. According to the draft, the National Congress took measures to collect and confiscate weapons and ammunition from everyone, to impose a curfew at certain times and in certain areas, and to evacuate or isolate some areas. Joining us from Tripoli is Mahmoud al-Misrati, editor-in-chief of the newspaper Libya al-Jadida. Mr. Mahmoud, first of all, what explains the escalating tension in the country?
It is explained by the weak performance of the National Congress and the al-Qaeda-led government, which is entering its final days. So far, this weak performance by the National Congress has not been able to reach a political decision to help grant legitimacy to the Interior Ministry and the Defense Ministry. In addition, the Congress has failed to prevent the chaotic spread of arms or to dissolve many of the armed brigades which remain outside of state control. It also explains why there's a major security vacuum that the National Congress is unable to overcome, since they couldn't find tangible strategies to solve it.
What do you think of the draft resolution for the declaration of a state of emergency, which is currently being drawn up?
This law is now being prepared, and we see that it may be able to reduce the level of political stalemate that's been witnessed among the ranks of the revolutionaries. Many violations are being committed against the revolutionaries by certain groups, individuals, and regions. Also, this law aims to help facilitate security measures, which are now seeing strain in Tripoli, Benghazi, and several other cities. The security scene in Libya requires the activation of laws and political resolutions. As for the emergency law, it will certainly be useless in the absence of a plan to implement it.
Mr. Mahmoud, do you think that the circumstances surrounding the death of Omran Juma Shaban are an indicator of the presence of forces in Libya that are able to eliminate all those who were involved in killing Gaddafi? And what will be the consequences of this?
First of all, here in Libya, we all agree, the National Congress, the government, the people, and the revolutionaries, we all agree that there's a rogue area that's outside of state control. There are armed groups that are out of control, who are waiting for the revolutionaries of Misrata especially, at the roads, gates, and ports. And they continuously kidnap them. They torture whomever they please, and kill whomever they please, and harass whomever they please. And the latest of those is Libya's Prince of Martyrs, Omran Shaban. Honestly, it was an atypical situation. This young man was kidnapped and tortured for 2 consecutive months. And if it hadn't been for Mr. Maghrif's last visit to Bani Walid, a deal would not have been struck there for the release of martyr Omran Shaban. However, his release came too late, and he had been declared clinically dead. Despite this, he was flown to France, where he passed away.
The Free Syrian Army conducted a quality operation that targeted the military's General Staff Command building, which resulted in the deaths of 4 security guard members and the injury of 14 others, according to reports by Syrian State TV.
The devastating conditions that are being witnessed by the cities and provinces of Deir ez-Zor, Homs, Aleppo, Hama, Daraa, and the Syrian capital Damascus are nothing but more evidence that the Assad gang has upped the level of its murderous tactics in a big way, through concentrated, indiscriminate, savage shelling by tanks and airplanes on all of these cities, which killed 250 people as of when this report was prepared, a number likely to increase. 40 bodies were discovered in the Damascus countryside. They were executed in the town of al-Thiyabiyya. Meanwhile, shelling by heavy artillery resumed on the Rankus and Hosh Arab fields and the cities of Duma and Harasta. Homs and its countryside also witnessed violent shelling by heavy artillery and tanks on the neighborhoods of Jobar and al-Sultaniya, and helicopters shelled the city of al-Rastan in sync with the heavy artillery that hammered the towns of Termalla and al-Ghant. In the meantime, Assad's army stormed the districts of Arbayin, Mashayal al-Arbayin, and Sheikh Anbar in Hama amid intense shooting and a campaign that demolished and burned houses, while military jets shelled the town of Masaoud near Akrabat. Heavy artillery and mortar shelling also reached the neighborhoods of Bustan al-Qasr, al-Kanesa, and Masakin Hanano in Aleppo. Helicopters shelled Da'al City and Daraa, while shelling was renewed on the town of Muarba and the towns of the Lejeh area, in the midst of an incursion by regime forces on the towns of Nemr and Kafr Shams, where they carried out destructive operations and arbitrary arrests. Deir ez-Zor, Idlib, Latakia, and the Raqqa countryside were also targets for the Assad army, which used all of their heavy weapons to pummel citizens' homes, as well as carry out a raid by warplanes that concentrated on these cities and resulted in a number of killed and injured. In Tartus, specifically in Banyas city, Assad's brigades arrested 25 women, 3 children, and over 40 men in a campaign that has continued for 4 days. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights demanded that Syrian authorities immediately and unconditionally release all of those detained in the Banyas area and warned of a sectarian war which the regime is aiming for. The Syrian capital awoke to the sounds of explosions, battles, and clashes between the two armies, Assad's army and the Free Army. In the center of the capital, an explosion targeted the general headquarters of the military and armed forces near Umayyad Square, which is usually subject to intense security measures. In the midst of the explosion, intense gunfire was heard. Plumes of smoke rose from the location of the two explosions as ambulances and fire trucks headed to the scene. The Shabiha were dispatched in the Abbasiyin area, and eyewitnesses said that regime forces closed off the Mezeh highway in the direction of Umayyad Square. Other information indicates that the building included offices for Iranian experts, in addition to many of the military commands of the Syrian regime. The Free Syrian Army claimed responsibility for the two explosions, clarifying that its members targeted the General Staff Command building and announced that dozens were killed. The Syrian regime, from its side, broadcast a series of tales with regard to the explosions. In the opening of its broadcast, Syrian TV showed a tape that it claimed was one of the two explosions that used car bombs in Damascus. Syrian Information Minister Omran al-Zawbi acknowledged that the two explosions that resulted from explosive canisters did not cause any casualties, announcing that all military commanders and journalists were fine. However, a Syrian military source announced that the attack caused the deaths of 4 security members guarding the General Staff Command building, in addition to 14 injured civilians and military personnel. He accused those whom he described as terrorist gangs with outside links of being behind the attack. Iran's Press TV announced the death of its reporter, Maya Nasser, by sniper fire in Damascus. Meanwhile, the director of Al-Alam News Network, Hussein Mortada, and his cameraman were hit by gunfire while reporting the blast.
Insurgents in the Syrian capital Damascus have attacked Press TV staff and killed one of our reporters. Press TV correspondent Maya Nasser came under attack while reporting on air. The attack is seen as another indication that the foreign-backed militants will do anything to advance the aims and interests of their supporters.
We are at the TV and radio station Aleppo. It's a game. It's the heart of the countryside of Damascus.
This man, Maya Nasser, was one of Press TV's correspondents in Syria who gave us live interviews from the ground. But now he's no longer among us. Terrorist snipers gunned him down on Wednesday when he was at the site of powerful explosions that hit a military complex in the capital Damascus. This is the footage of today's twin blasts aired by the Syrian national television. The video shows how the headquarters of the Armed Forces General Staff was rocked by the two explosions. Syrian military sources say at least 4 security guards were killed, while 14 civilians and security personnel were wounded in the blasts. The umbrella group of armed groups in Syria, called the Free Syrian Army, has claimed responsibility for the attack. The 33-year-old Nasser was at the site when he was targeted by snipers in the gunfire following the blasts. These were his last moments.
The damage is huge on the Mosaic Square, and no further information about the victims yet.
Is the situation, has it calmed down, or is it still taking place? Okay, we've lost Maya, but we're going to try to definitely get him back on the phone.
The visiting Syrian parliamentary delegation has dismissed the Western claims that Iran has dispatched armed forces to Syria to fight the opposition. Our correspondent Gambar Naderi has more.
A Syrian parliamentary delegation has met with members of Iran's National Security and Foreign Policy Committee. After the meeting, at a press conference, a senior member of the Syrian delegation told Press TV that Damascus seeks help from Iran to resolve the ongoing conflict in his country through dialogue. He also dismissed Western claims that Iran has sent armed forces to Syria to fight the armed opposition.
There isn't one single Iranian military personnel in Syria. Syria has more than 500,000 government fighters and doesn't need any foreign assistance in the conflict.
Alauddin Borujerdi, the chairman of the Iranian Parliament's National Security and Foreign Policy Committee, also told Press TV that in a recent meeting on Syria in Egypt, the participants agreed that the balance of power has shifted in favor of the Syrian government and that the country is moving slowly toward peace and stability.
During the recent Cairo meeting, high-ranking delegates, including foreign ministers from Iran, Turkey, and Egypt, discussed the Syrian crisis. Saudi Arabia was absent. The participants agreed that Syria is what it is now, an Arab country with a fully functioning government and a president called Bashar al-Assad. They further called for national dialogue, rejected foreign military intervention, and welcomed the country's ongoing move towards stability and security.
Borujerdi also said Syria is a complex and pivotal part of the Middle East. That's why those who wish Syrians well should focus on how best to resolve the crisis and prevent violence from spreading across the region.
Iran's President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad strongly criticizes the current world order as discriminatory and based on inequality. Addressing the UN General Assembly in New York, Ahmadinejad said unilateralism and double standards are prevailing in global politics. He added that the world is in urgent need of a new order. The Iranian president says the, quote, abysmal global situation is because of the mismanagement of the world body by a small minority that has a destructive behavior. He also slammed capitalism and blamed it for the rise in global poverty. He warned that the gap is widening between the rich and the poor. Ahmadinejad also called for reforming the UN structure and criticized the veto right held by 5 permanent members of the Security Council.
Minister of Maghreb and African Affairs, Khaled Mashaal, is representing Algeria as a delegate at a high-level meeting on the Sahel region and the crisis in Mali, which is scheduled for tomorrow in New York on the sidelines of the 67th round of the United Nations General Assembly. The meeting, headed by UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon, aims to help the international community get a feel for the importance of stability and development in the Sahel region and Mali. The situation in Mali and the Sahel region heads the discussions that will be held at the UN General Assembly. Ibrahim Al-Khalil Kerbal reports.
بثقله وحساسيته يطرح الملف المالي أو الأزمة.
The heavy but sensitive case of the Mali crisis is being brought to the discussion table at the UN General Assembly in New York. UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon acknowledged that the worrisome situation in the Sahel region requires coordinated effort by the international community. This comes after the interim Malian president, Diakounde Traoré, asked the UN Security Council to authorize sending military forces from only the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, to Mali. Anticipating Mali's desire, statements were issued at the UN indicating unanimous agreement on deploying non-African countries' forces to northern Mali. Knowledgeable sources may agree with proponents of the military option, who believe that the 14-member countries of ECOWAS would be unable to liberate the area of northern Mali. Therefore, the situation would escalate to another level that would require aid from the entire international community to support the ECOWAS forces that are fighting there. The situation remains the same. The signs of poverty and the incredible spread of weapons and drought expedite the movement of refugees and the displaced, who do not want anything more than security and stability.
The humanitarian situation of Sahrawi refugees at the camps and liberated areas was the focus of the meeting that took place today. At the meeting, the president of the Algerian Red Cross praised the African Commission for Human Rights, headed by its president, Dubé Atoki. A joint visit is being organized to look closely into the situation.
Press sources from Addis Ababa in Ethiopia confirm that it is expected for a final decision to be announced within the coming hours between the Sudanese and South Sudanese presidents over the disputed cases between the two countries. Sources close to both delegations confirm that the two parties are in the stages of drafting an agreement over the main disputed cases and will have this agreement presented to the presidents of both of the countries to sign.
The outstanding issues between Sudan and South Sudan were pivotal and caused tension that brought both countries to the brink of war in the spring. However, negotiations came after the Security Council warned both countries that the Council would impose sanctions on them if they did not reach an agreement. The African Union's intervention and mediation forced both parties to announce an agreement, even though it was incomplete. And for this reason, the daunting negotiations were repeated between the delegations of both countries, with the attendance of Sudanese President Omar al-Bashir and President of South Sudan Salva Kiir at the African Union's headquarters in Addis Ababa. This is in order to announce an agreement, even if it is incomplete. The outstanding issues between the two countries include settling the disputed borders and stabilizing their security, allowing Sudan to resume oil exports from South Sudan, and to agree to a formula for sharing oil revenues, settling the situation of the disputed oil region of Abyei, and settling the humanitarian situation in South Kordofan, as well as the Blue Nile, which is witnessing activity from rebel groups. Leaked information regarding the progress of the negotiations is promising. If the leaked information is accurate, there will be a final settlement of issues that had been unresolved since the achievement of the peace treaty in 2005, which ended a civil war that lasted for decades between the rebels in the south and the government of Khartoum and led to South Sudan's independence in July 2011. Ayan Yaqub, BBC.
Political boss Khaled Mashaal is calling it quits. The terror chief said he is tired of policy challenges from the Islamist group's Gaza-based leadership, and he will not seek re-election in a vote that has already been underway for the past 5 months. Mashaal has led Hamas since 1996 from various safe havens offered by Arab countries. But he recently told senior officials of the terrorist organization that he has no desire to remain its chief, and that his decision not to run is final. Mashaal did not say what his future plans entailed. The Iranian military today revealed that the electronic spying device that exploded in the Fordo nuclear plant last month is similar to ones that were discovered by Hezbollah in Lebanon. The device was found by Iranian troops during a routine security inspection of the site. We get more now on this report from Dennis Zinn.
A rock is probably not an unusual element in an underground nuclear facility. However, one particular rock exploded last month at a nuclear reactor in Iran when members of the Iranian Presidential Guards tried to move it. The object was found to be a monitoring device which self-destructed when disturbed. According to the Iranians, it's not unlike similar devices that were discovered in South Lebanon. They did not say what sort of data it was communicating, but its discovery probably signals the loss of a major source of intelligence concerning the nuclear enrichment centrifuges at the Fordo site. In a separate but related issue, the German industrial conglomerate Siemens today rejected charges made by the Iranian government that it attempted to disrupt the Islamic Republic's nuclear program. Iran accused the Munich-based company of planting explosives and equipment it supplied in order to wreak havoc at the Iranian nuclear sites. A Siemens spokesman said that the company's nuclear division has not done business with Tehran since 1979. Meanwhile, the commander of the Presidential Guard said yesterday, war with Israel is inevitable, fueling the public debate as to whether or not Israel will attack the Iranian nuclear facilities and what effect that could have on Tehran's nuclear program. Several foreign publications have speculated that the IDF may detonate a sophisticated electronic device in the atmosphere above Iran, which would destroy its industrial infrastructure, including the nuclear enrichment program. Here is a 2008 video produced by the Center for Security Policy, a U.S. security watchdog concerned about such a weapon being used against the United States.
A nuclear weapon atop a ballistic missile has been launched from a freighter off the coast of the United States. The weapon is not designed to kill Americans, at least not directly and right away. Instead, it is meant to unleash EMP, an electromagnetic pulse that destroys electronic devices and power grids. As it detonates 300 miles above the United States, the single explosion unleashes electronic waves 1,000,000 times more powerful than any radio signal on Earth. In the United States, nearly all computers fail. Telecommunications end. Transportation comes to a halt. The stock market's crippled. Bank accounts disappear. Federal officials warn EMP could paralyze America.
Still, it's pure speculation as to whether Israel has the weapon, and if so, whether or not it will be used. It also poses many questions, such as how fallout from an EMP detonation will affect US and other Western forces in the Gulf, which rely on their electronics to survive.
For the first time, Yemenis commemorated the 50th anniversary of the September 26th revolution in the absence of deposed President Ali Abdullah Saleh.
Official and popular celebrations spread across the capital Sana'a and in some other cities in the country. A military display was also held for the occasion. Revolutionary young people organized festive events through which they asserted that the revolution that began last year is an extension of the September Revolution.
The absence of deposed President Ali Abdullah Saleh for the first time in 33 years from this torch-lighting ceremony in Sana'a for the 50-year anniversary of the September 26th revolution was not the only feature of the events. Everything looked different. Due to security reasons, the locale changed. It was transferred from an open space in Change Square, as was custom, to here, where the Ministry of Defense is situated. To a different beat than previous years, these youths announced what they called an oath of allegiance to President Abdurrabbu Mansour Hadi. Here in Change Square, revolutionary youths celebrated the event in their own way. They regard their popular revolution against the Saleh regime as an extension of the September Revolution, even though their tactics have changed.
Those forces that opposed the project of building a republic are attempting today, with all the resources and power they had amassed in the past, to hinder the project of building a modern country.
The establishment of a powerful national army to protect the country was the second goal of the September Revolution, after the goal of liberation. Today, half a century after that revolution, there seems to be a dire need to accomplish this goal. Perhaps it is represented in the message that the military display hoped to deliver here at the military academy. The display appeared to transcend the divisions between the ranks of the military. But in reality, it does not hide the fact that the military is afflicted by a real crisis, the result of having turned into an institution to defend the ruler over the years. That may be what pushed Mohamed Salam Basenjoa, the president of the National Unity Government, to emphasize the role of the military commission in ending tension in the country.
I salute the members of the committee, and I praise and support their ongoing efforts in accomplishing the task they were assigned to do, which was to reach an end to the current state of division and to rebuild and restructure both military and security establishments.
Official and popular events spread over several cities celebrated the revolution that liberated northern Yemen from imperial rule. It was followed within a year by the eruption of a revolution against the British colonization in its south. Hamdi al-Bukhari, Al Jazeera, Sana'a.
The views expressed on Mosaic are from contributing broadcasters, not Link TV or its sponsors. The production of Mosaic is made possible by grants from the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation, the Wincoat Foundation, the Firedoll Foundation, and by support of viewers like you. Thank you. Watch Mosaic World News online. Stay up to date with breaking news, read our blog, get transcripts of past shows, and more at linktv.org/mosaic. Airwaves, a global channel of uncompromising stories, world news, documentaries, entertainment, and culture. Link TV, connecting you to the world. For more information, visit linktv.org.